ஆக்சுவலா ஜெனரல் கிளாஸஸ் ஆக்ட் ஒரு பியூட்டிஃபுல்லான டாபிக். ஏற்கனவே நம்ம டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணியிருக்கோம். ஒரு டிக்ஷனரிய படிச்சா எப்படி படிப்போம் நம்ம? see நீங்க அப்படியே டிக்ஷனரி வந்து நீங்க அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட் பண்ணாம பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, தட்ஸ் வேஸ்ட். எப்படி நம்ம ஆல்ஃபபெடிக்கல் ஆர்டர்க்குள்ள ஆல்ஃபபெடிக்கல் ஆர்டர்க்குள்ள லைக் ஒரு ஸ்ட்ராட்டஜியோட நம்ம டர்ன் பண்ணி பார்ப்போம்ல பேஜ். இன் கேஸ் ஐ வாண்ட் டு ஃபைண்ட் அ மீனிங் ஃபார் a term or something like that, where it starts with S, what do you do? Probably you'll go for middle of the page, then turn some pages for S. So PQRS அந்த term வரும்போது. So அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு strategy follow பண்ணணும், law படிக்கணும்னா, how you are going to interpret ங்கிறத follow பண்ணணும். So general clauses are an interpretation of statutes. These two acts are beautiful acts. And we'll not talk about one act here. We are going to talk about almost all the acts, but our major applicability is on Companies Act only. So directly we'll go in touch with that. Okay. So directly I'll go for single material. Yes, please join. So just to learn about the general definitions, we'll come across this topic called as General Clauses Act. See the term itself. What do you mean by clauses? Means terms. Okay. When we say general, if we talk about the term called as person, in Income Tax Act, the person is different. In the sense of company point of view, the person is different. Company filing income tax, then the definition carries over as per the IT Act. Okay. Likewise, if you go for a person, generally there is a definition where we'll be referring from General Clauses Act. Apart from that, for Act to Act, it might be slightly differing. So when we say general, it means it's applicable. If it is not given in that particular act, it's applicable everywhere. Okay. So I am referring Companies Act. This defines about company. What do you mean by company? Incorporated under 2013 Act or earlier acts. If I have a doubt in this term, what I do? I go and refer this General Clauses Act. Usually we call this as law of all laws. So to understand a law, we need to understand what is this topic is about. So if you go for the applicability, there is no particular applicability and all, but if you go for a wider sense, it is applicable for all central acts. See, all. It's having a wider definition. All regulations given under the central acts unless, please highlight, repugnant in the subject or constant. What is repugnancy means? Probably inconsistent way of, okay, repugnant in the subject or contest. Effective when, in the case of there is no clear definition, there is a conflict between pre and post and pre-constitutional laws. So what do you mean by pre and post-constitutional laws? Again, we have discussed, I think. Yes, what is pre and post-constitutional laws? 1950, we have a constitution. All acts before 1950 will be called as the pre-constitutional laws, and all acts after 1950 will be called as the post-constitutional laws. Okay. What are the acts made after 1950? Those post-constitutional laws will not be inconsistent with our Indian constitution. But whereas if we go for pre-constitutional laws, because we have our own charter laws only after this period, not charter law, charter government. Okay, only after this period. So if any laws are made before this one, which is called as pre-constitution laws, then it should be inconsistent with Constitution of India, 1950. If it is not inconsistent, if it is not consistent, which means inconsistent means, then that will be void to that extent. That inconsistent part will become void. Okay. And if you have any uncertainty, obviously we have to refer General Clauses Act. And yes, when we say or when we talk about a term in a dictionary, actually what does it mean? Means is we need to shorten the language. Instead of giving like lines and lines for defining a term, I shall tell that term. Okay. Not only that, to avoid repetition and superfluity. What do you mean by repetition? Throughout the topic, I need not each and every time repeat the 3 or 4 lines like definition. What I can do instead, I can use one term. What do you mean by superfluity? Means I may be having a different knowledge of definition. You may be having a different knowledge of definition. We should not do that in law. Interpretation can be different, but definition itself cannot be different, right? When I say company, what do you understand? Company as per incorporated by laws. So you should not have a different definition. I should not have a. So that to avoid the superfluity, we have something called as general clauses. Okay. So we have this enactment. We are actually referring this 1897 Act only. We have this enactment from this date 1897, but earlier we had 1868 Act and 1887 Act. Actually, we are consolidating and extending this Act, and we are now applying this Act, like 1897 Act. Okay. Even though we have 1897 Act, for some extent, probably with respect to definitions, we'll be referring both the acts. So when I come for the definition part, probably definitions I'll do as a separate session only because it's a beautiful act. We have to understand how each and every definitions are dealt. ஓகே ஒரு கமா வந்துச்சுன்னா அந்த கமா ஏன் வருது ஒரு ஃபுல் ஸ்டாப் வந்துச்சுன்னா ஏன் வருது ஆர் வந்துச்சுன்னா ஏன் ஆர் வருது அண்ட் வந்துச்சுன்னா ஏன் அண்ட் வருது ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி ரொம்ப அழகா பேசினா நல்லா இருக்கும் அதனால டெஃபினேஷன்ஸ் மட்டும் வில் டூ இட் டிஃபரன்ட் செஷன் ஸோ ஃபார் டெஃபினேஷன்ஸ் ரிகார்டிங் will be referring these two act, which means it will have an impact. Okay. So we'll go for a case law. For example, how you are going to understand this act is the court may appoint receiver. See, the court may appoint receiver, which means in any particular act, there might be a provision giving the authority for the court. See, when an act is defined, the court cannot come inside. See, the act is defined. Who are the persons authorized to act in that? Central government has to be given permission. Okay, for example, we have this Section 8 company. What is Section 8 company? Non-profit, which means central government is given the power, which means you'll have that central government is empowered to give the license. So that Section 8 is license providing section. And here we have to say that central government is given the permission, which means given the authority to give the permission. Okay, if this word or this section is not mentioned, the central government cannot play a role over here on these companies. Likewise, RBI. Okay. Likewise, here we say the court, there means there will be some definition of the, okay, may appoint receiver. When we say appoint, is understood that the court will have the power to appoint, not only to appoint, to suspend or to remove receivers. So it just looks like, okay, appoint is no, not that way. Appoint means it's understood as appoint, not only appointment, even it has the rights to suspend and remove the receiver also. So it's been discussed in this case, Madhavya Motors. Okay. And you know this articles, சின்ன வயசுல படிச்சிருப்பீங்க A and the okay. Okay. Actually, this two is both same spelling only. When you use A and when you use and, vowels and consonant. Likewise, the and the will be used. Okay, the means some soft pronunciation. Okay, so when we use the, okay, probably to understand a better way, let me write in this way. Small t. The means we are giving some stress on the alphabet T. So when we use the means probably we are going to use this after that where we have a term starting with vowel. Okay, the Taj Mahal, the apple. Okay, see we use a apple or an apple. An apple. Okay. When you use an apple and when you use the apple. ஏதோ இங்கிலீஷ் கிளாஸ்ல உட்காந்த மாதிரி ஒரு ஃபீல் இருக்குமே மனசுல நினைக்கிறதுனா கேக்குது when you use an apple and when you use the apple. And means is apple. I can have a basket full of apples. And I'm talking about one single apple which belongs to me means I'll be giving that specification. Here I'll not say the. Obviously, spellings are same. Here I'll not say the. I'll say the. Okay. Instead, if I talk about Taj Mahal, T is consonant. I'll say the. Railway station, the railway station. Okay. Quote. How I have to read this? The. Okay. அதுக்கும் ஜெனரல் கிளாஸ் சம்மந்தமே இல்லை எக்ஸாம்ல அந்த கொஸ்டின் வரவே வராது so you can be happy. Okay. So appointing means what do you understand here? Appointing, suspending, and also removing. Okay, so whenever you find this word appointment, don't go and argue with your professional colleagues saying that appointment na kuduthirunga judge munadi போய் சொல்லிடாதீங்க. Okay. Shall I? Manager, the officer, sorry, the officer, you'll get it. The officer in default, so everybody will be there. Shall I go for the next heading? So this is a basic intro. Object, purpose, and importance. Object, yes, we have already seen. To shorten the language, I need to have the uniformity of expression. I say a term, you have to understand the term in the same way I'm discussing here. Okay, not in my own way, but as per the law. Okay, rules, construction, and interpretation, how we are going to follow. What does this line means? Okay. So, for example, we were discussing the court may appoint receiver. What does this line mean? It's understood. Okay. And to guard against slips and oversight, which means the superfluity of the language. So, you need not misunderstand or misinterpret in a different way. Okay. So, that's about this one. Purpose. It's read in every statute. Please highlight. It's not a separate act. If you talk the General Process Act separately, you cannot talk about General Process Act separately. You have to refer all the acts. It's applicable in all the acts. Okay, so it's read in every statute, which means what? It's applicable for every statute. For all the Indian laws, it's applicable. See, we have seen here in the second line, you remember? Applicability. Here. Applicable to all central acts and regulations unless repugnant in the, which means all central acts means is understood we are referring for state acts also. Okay, continue. So, single statute may have different provisions. So, in that case, we have to refer that statute only. It is applicable in different acts and different regulations, and as per the act, it will be carrying over the meaning. For example, if I talk about the person as officer, in Companies Act, the officer is different. In Competition Act, the officer is different. So when I say officer, officer is a person who is given the authority. Okay, so officer might be taking different authority as per the different acts, as per the different statutes. Okay, so applicable in all the acts and regulations, but as per the and over superfluity of language. Okay, so importance, all India application. So that's why we call this as law of all laws. See, Indian Contract Act, we call it as mother of all laws. This is called as law of all laws. Okay, and desideratum, which means how far this is important. See, I'm going to take this act as important or not. No, refer which act you're referring for this, and you take that importance. Probably, if you're talking about limited liability partnership act, how far that line is important, then general clauses act is playing the role over there. So, importance is its purpose itself. Then, which way you use it, that way it's been understood. Okay, we'll go for the second example. It's a beautiful example. When I say a right is given to catch or carry fish, okay, it's different. When we say catch and carry fish, probably let me go for an example. I have a property, okay, and there is a pond inside that property. It's a very big pond, okay, so very big that I cannot go for a small type of fishing and all. நெட்டு கம்பியை வச்சு குச்சி வச்சு பண்ற மாதிரிலாம் இல்ல ஒரு போட் ஒரு இது வச்சுட்டே போலாம் so it will look like a small ocean backwater like so I have a very big pond where I can go for catch the fish okay what I do is I give this right to a person actually we'll call this as license okay this right to catch the fish will be called as license I give a license to the person to catch the fish what law says is this is called as immovable right okay this is called as immovable right this person catches the fish from my pond, and what he does is he sells in the market, and you buy the fish from the market. How many buy fish directly from the ocean sellers? மீன் பிடிக்கிறவர்கிட்ட போய் வாங்குவீங்களா அந்த சென்னையில அந்த இதுல காசிமேட்டு பீச் ராமேஸ்வரம் சைட்ல எல்லாம் போனீங்கன்னா யூ கேன் ஹேவ் இட் டைரக்ட் ஃப்ரம் த ஓஷன் அந்த மாதிரி வாங்கியிருக்கீங்களா ஓகே வாட் வாட்ஸ் ஓகே ஹவ் யூ பை தட் யூ கோ இன்சைட் த போட் அண்ட் கேட்ச் த ஃபிஷ் நோ how you do it somebody will be catching the fish and coming to the store and selling it you will buy that so either it's sold in the market உயிரோட இருக்க மீனோ செத்துருக்க போன மீனோ என்னவா இருக்கணும் பண்றது பிரச்சனை இல்லை வாங்குறது எப்படி if you buy in the market okay if you buy from that seashore well it is called as movable property okay because why means as per the definition is detached from the earth okay I have a farm okay where I grow avocados okay I give a right for a person to sell the avocados, which means he gets the right, he gets the license to pluck the avocados and sell it. Plucking the avocado is associated with a term called as immobile property, and he sells in the market, and I buy from the market. It will be called as so just as buying. Okay, it will be called as movable property. Why? It's detached from the earth. அவகோடா பதிலா லெமன் போடுங்க அவகோடா பதிலா ஆப்பிள் போடுங்க அவகோடா பதிலா அவரைக்காய் போடுங்க என்ன பண்ணாலும் இதை கதை தான் okay it's not only for fish usually why this question is raised means fish means it's moving right it's not attached to earth when we talk about avocado trees or apple trees or whatever other thing it's rooted to earth so we use this term called as rooted okay rooted to earth rooted means attached ஆயிருக்கு by default if you talk about the building okay it's attached to earth we'll not use the term as rooted instead we use the term called as attached okay how this building is attached We have a land, okay, ஒரு landல ஒரு building கட்டுறோம். How you raise the building? By fixing the basements and you raise the concrete floors and all everything you do. So construction of building once it's done, it's been attached to them. Likewise, being account students, we need to understand this missionary. Missionary is movable or immovable. Actually, we don't have this definition in accounts because in accounts, how we do it, fixed or not fixed. So we are not discussing in this angle itself. But in now, what we have to do is we have to discuss is whether movable or immovable, because whether we need to register or not. If it is immovable, definitely we have to register. Okay. If it is movable, it's optional. Okay, tell me. Missionary is movable or immovable? நீங்களே சொல்லிடுங்க. Definition வந்து attached to earth or not attached to earth. If it is attached to earth, it's immovable. Temporarily attached means for what purpose? Which means if you want to change the place, what do you have to do? You have to, that's what, you have to detach it. Detach it means you have to completely shift it, means you have to break that probably. But I've seen in many factories where there will be some concrete flooring will be there. If you break that concrete flooring only, you can detach that machine. If it is done in that way, we call it as immovable. This is attached to it. Okay. So only thing, three definitions will be the same. You can find it over here. Benefits to arise out of land. So if you're getting any benefits, and things attached to it or permanently fastened to anything attached to it. Okay. So this is being defined under what power? General Clauses Act. Okay. So if we want to know whether this is movable property or immovable property, where you go and refer? General Clauses Act. Now I'm going to buy or sell a property, which means we have an act called as Transfer of Property Act. In this act, they say, see, here they were saying that immovable property includes land, benefits to arise of land, and other things at all. But whereas we go for Transfer of Property Act, it says you take this definition, but for this act purpose, you should not consider standing timber, growing crops or grass. The harvest பண்றதுக்கு முன்னாடி என்ன பண்ணுவாங்கன்னா இந்த நிலம்லாம் பேடி ஃபீல்ட் வீட் இதெல்லாமே ஹார்வெஸ்ட் பண்ண இதெல்லாமே ஹார்வெஸ்ட் பண்ண போறோம்னு காமிப்பாங்க. இட்ஸ் அட்டாச் டு earth. Okay. See, crops, growing crops, grass, and standing timbers, even though they are attached to earth, which satisfies the definition as per the General Clauses Act, but Transfer of Property Act says, this is my act, follow my rule. Okay. So if you are doing some related activities here, if you are transferring, see, what do you mean by transfer? Okay. To understand in a better way, what do you mean by sale? Buying and selling. What do you mean by that? What will be the consideration? Price. Price will be the consideration. Here, transfer. When we say sale, mostly is related with goods. That's movable. Okay. When we talk about transfer, it's associated with immovable in nature. For immovable, we'll not use the term sale, but it's obviously understood as sale only. We'll not use the term sale, but we'll use the term called as transfer because it's having a wider definition. In case you're selling this property, we'll not use the term selling the property, we'll say this transferring the property only. Okay, so you catch my point. We say transferring the property. So I sell the property, which means what? I'm going to take money and give my property. Second, I'm going to give my property. Tata satamla parent தான். எப்படா தாத்தா மண்டைய போடுவான்னு வெயிட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். Okay, gifting the property or by hire you get it. Okay, like accidental properties. Okay, what is apart from these things? See, ownership is transferred in all the cases. Apart from these things, giving a license, it's also a transfer. I have a land, I'm giving a license for plucking the avocados, which means what? I'm giving my right to that person. It's also what is transfer. Okay. So if I go for registration, I have to go for proper paying of stamp duty and all. Barter is I give and say take from something from him. That is barter. That may be related to move. It's a process. Barter is a process. We'll talk about sale. We'll talk about barter. We'll talk about exchange. Barter means I give something, you give something. I give something, you pay money, price, which is sale. I give something, you give something along with money. It's an exchange. Mobile exchange. You give mobile, your old mobile, and along with it, you do what? You pay some money. Okay, barter is I give my mobile, you completely give your new mobile to me. That's barter. Okay, then I'm colloquial use பண்ணிக்கிற terms. Okay. So when we go for the term transfer, is having a wider definition, giving a license, giving a gift like or selling, everything is considered over here. Okay, so if you go for transfer of property, actually you have to refer, obviously when we say property, immobile, we have to refer this set of General Process Act definition only, but along with that, if you are in this act, particular act, Transfer of Property Act, we have to understand this definition only. Okay? Okay. Shall I take over? Let me clean the book. Now let me go for this point. So we are discussing so far with respect to definition. A right to catch or carry fish, whether it's immobile or mobile. Okay. Here, if you talk about the nature of fish, it's the benefits arising from the land. Okay, so it's a immobile property. Okay. A right to catch or carry fish. As per the definition, it's the benefits arising out of land. So we say as immobile. But you go for Transfer of Property Act, it has two definitions. But one point you can say it's mobile, in one point you can say immobile. So the second heading over. Shall I go for the third heading? Third heading, application of the General Clauses Act. There is no territorial extent. So whenever we talk about any act, the section 1 talks about scope, extent, commencement. Okay, we'll talk about the geographical applicability, to which area it's applicable. If you go for Companies Act, where it is applicable, only for India. Okay, if you go for Prevention of Money Laundering Act, PMLA Act, it's not only for India. Okay, if you go for Information Technology Act, IT Act, not only India, because I can have a system over here, my computer may be here, and another one system may be in some foreign country or Saudi or any country, and I may be having some transactions over there. For them also it's applicable, for me also applicable, because the ways are transferring to India. It's applicable. Okay, so when we talk about the scope, that is applicability, here General Clauses Act is not having any territorial extent clause, which means we cannot say there is no territorial applicability, but still we have the applicability, because when I refer this act to Companies Act, it's having that applicability. அந்த ஆக்ட் யூஸ் பண்ணும்போது அந்த ஆக்டோட applicability வரும். Is it okay? Applicability in general, all central acts, rules, regulations, everything. It's having a, that's why we say that it's having a deemed territorial application. Because of this applicability, we are having a deemed territorial. Okay. And applies to, please make a note of this, it's quite important. This is often repeated question also, application of General Clauses Act. Applies to Indian Parliament, which means what? The Central Act. Which Parliament is making the Central Act. So, what are the acts made by the Indian Parliament? Central Acts. See, we got independence at this time, and we got a constitution at this time. Okay. During this period, which means 15th August to 26th Jan. Okay, 15th August to 26th Jan. This period is what you call as a dominion legislation period. Okay. We had laws, like we did not have our own chartered laws, like, but we were following the laws. So this period was called as dominion legislation. So all the acts that brought during that period will also have the applicability. Okay. Before commencement of the constitution by Governor General in Council or any person in legal capacity, which means, see, after this only we had this PM rule and all. During this period, we had governor general. So he might be given some. See, we have this ordinance where the president has the right to give the ordinance. Usually, when we go for passing an act, who has to pass it? Parliament, right? Parliament means Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and president. Okay. If there is no Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in session, that directly we go for the president assent, and we pass this as a, this notification will be passed as ordinance. Okay, likewise, during this period, the governor, that is before the constitution, before the commencement of the constitution, the governor general was having the authority, or any person who is having the legal capacity, that is authority given for them, he might have given some act, right? So those was also applicable. So General Clauses Act is applicable to those also. Okay. So General Clauses Act and constitutional validity. Yes, Article 367 says, yes, you can use this for interpretation. Please highlight. If this was not stated, then General Clauses Act will not be applicable at all. Because of this line, because of this article only, we have this applicability. Can we just go for this four lines? So what is this four line quote sentence here is, authorizes for interpretation, which means usually most of the topic will have this line unless the contest otherwise requires, which means if you want to have any regarding or related changes, we can adapt it. Okay. So the General Clauses Act shall subject to any adaptations or modifications that may be made under Article 372 apply for the interpretation of this Constitution as it applies. Please highlight it. This is the important line. Okay. Apply for the interpretation of this Constitution as it applies for the interpretation of an act of the legislation of the Dominion of India. Okay. Provisions is just mere rules of interpretation only, which means it's just giving the definition related to your facts and circumstances you have to apply. So it's complete interpretation only law. You cannot directly take it as a law because you are applying not individually, you are applying not independently, you are making this a dependent act. Okay, so we are completely depending on that, so you cannot directly apply. Other countries also we have it. Some say this as Interpretation Act, some say this as General Clauses Act. Is more or less having the same weightage only. Okay, need not. So let us go for this case law. Inspector of Mines versus KC Tapar case. So this versus okay KC Tapar case. Here the Supreme Court has made some observations. Whatever the General Clauses Act says, whether as regards to the meaning of words or with respect to principle, has to be read into every act to which it applies. You are applying for Companies Act to which it applies. You are applying for incorporation of a company, rules and regulations related to incorporation of a company, go and refer the General Clauses Act over there. Okay. So to which it applies means to which you are applying that act over there. Okay. Scope, yes, depends upon the particular section. Yes, sometimes we'll go for referring the particular section also. Example, actually, this is referring with definition section. Difference in the applicability will be there. Probably I'll discuss this with later. Probably in the next session when I go for the definition, I'll discuss. Cannot now. A model for State General Clauses Act. Actually, when we say General Clauses Act, we are talking about it's applicable for all central acts, rules and regulations. We did not mention the state acts, but we have a separate act called as State General Clauses Act, where whatever is there for central level, it's there for state level also. Okay, that's why we are not completely separately mentioning here. So if we conform to that, in case there are divergent rules, means we have to go for construction and interpretation where we refer interpretation of statutes. Okay, not here we are discussing, we are discussing in the separate heading. Okay, and ensures that we are not having this confusion. Okay, we are resorting this one. Some basic understanding. We'll go for preamble. Already we have discussed, like what do you mean by preamble? It will go for a short summary. It will give in 2 or 3 lines. Okay. Then we'll go for definitions. So means includes what do you mean by means and includes shall and may. So preamble here. Every act has a preamble which expresses what it will say, what it will give an idea about the scope, object, and purpose of the act. Okay, so this is one line. After that, it is a main source for understanding the intention of lawmaker. See, whenever we talk about General Clauses Act, we are talking about the interpretation, how we are going to understand in a better way. So when we say about interpretation, see, I did not make the law. Okay, somebody made the law some 100 years before and I'm applying it today. Okay, so somebody has made that 100 years before. We see, I cannot understand what my daughter thinks, and my mom cannot understand what I think. Just a 20 years or 30 years difference is there. And this lawmaker has made it 100 years before. See, and we are following 1897, 100 plus years. How do I understand what that lawmaker has thought? So, preamble is we need to understand the intention of the lawmaker. See, the law is so very simple. You need to understand that it should not affect anybody. நம்ம ஏதாவது ஒரு வேலை பண்ணோம்னா ஒரு ஆக்ஷன் பண்ணோம்னா அது யாரையும் அஃபெக்ட் பண்ணக்கூடாது. அதான் தீம் பிஹைண்ட். அது ஒரு பர்சனுக்காக பார்க்க கூடாது, மொத்தமா பார்க்கணும். இப்ப எனக்கு மட்டும் நான் பார்த்தேன்னா அது செல்ஃபிஷ்னஸ். அதான் அந்த மாதிரி எல்லாம் பார்க்காது. Okay, so that's all you have to understand. So intention of lawmaker behind that. So what the lawmaker has thought, so how we'll understand? That's the problem. அவரோட வயசுக்கு அவரோட எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸுக்கு வேற மாதிரி யோசிச்சிருக்காரு. நம்ம என்ன பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம்? நம்மளோட ஏஜுக்கு நம்மளோட எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ்க்கு வேற மாதிரி யோசிச்சுட்டு இருக்கோம். இன்டர்பிரிட்டேஷன் will be different. When this interpretation differs, we go for the court of law. Because I filed a case for the breach, I'll go to the court of law. The judge, he will think in a different way. Because his experience will be totally different. His legal experience will be totally different. Okay. So whenever there is an ambiguity, see, whenever there is an ambiguity in understanding, preamble is accepted as an aid to construction of the act. Whether you need to consider the preamble as act? No, preamble is not the act. There is an act. See, why we need to have so many chapters and so many sections? Well, preamble not belonging. We have hundreds and hundreds of pages. We need to understand for each and every provisions we are referring that section. Okay, so why we need to have so many contents? Because it's needed. So preamble is giving a just the gist only. If we find any confusion, you can take the help of the preamble in what way we have to understand, but you should not consider the preamble as the act itself. See, let me repeat this line over here. When there is an ambiguity, whenever there is an ambiguity, see here. Whenever there is an ambiguity, which means what? You cannot understand any provision of any act, okay? Then preamble is accepted as an aid to the aid means what? Support. Okay, a supportive provision to construction of the. Is it okay? So when you talk about the nature of the preamble, it's nothing but a part of the enact. Okay, used for legitimate construction. Yes, construction and interpretation colloquially we interchange and use the term. When we say legitimate construction, see, my experience is different and your experience is different. We will be defining different things in different ways. Don't do that. That should not be done. We have to go for legitimate, which means what law says. As per that, you have to have form. Okay, so when you go for interpretation of statutes act, it will give you the list of principles. Principle of natural justice and principle of other things and all. We have everything we have to follow. Okay. Do not override the plain provisions, which means what? Some provisions will be discussing on something, directly take to that. Do not override. Okay. For proper construction, which means you want to follow that properly, strictly. In case you have any doubts for usage of the words or phrases with more than one meaning, then you have to go for following the principle which is given in the next tab, interpretation of statutes. It will disclose the primary intention of the legislation. It's just an aid only if the language is not clear. You should not take it as an act. Examples. Examples. If you talk about Negotiable Instrument Act, this is an act which defines and amends the law relating to promissory notes, bill of exchange, and checks. See, when you go and refer Negotiable Instrument Act, it defines only three instruments and negotiable instruments. One instrument is promissory note, second is BOE, and third is checks. இந்த மூணு தவிர என்ன இருந்தாலும் வந்து negotiable instrument இல்லையா? No, it's actually defining only these three. See, please try to understand in this sense. See, when we say preamble, it's an act. Please highlight to define and amend the law. When you go for a negotiable instrument act, it's defining only three negotiable instruments. One is promissory note, second is bill of exchange, and third is checks. And not only this, along with that, it's giving a few conditions. When you say negotiable instrument, what are the conditions followed? And there are some instruments where these conditions are followed. For example, when you talk about bond, these conditions are followed. Then we say it's also negotiable instrument. Okay, so when you say all these conditions are followed, that is called as negotiable instrument, but not defined in that. But applicability of the act is there. Please try to understand. See, now you come for this word, an act to define, which means what? We need to define. Okay, what are promissory notes? What are bill of exchanges? And what are checks? When you go for Companies Act, see, Companies Act is not defining. Instead, what it's doing? Consolidating and amending. What do you mean by consolidating? Already we have 1956 Act. 1956 Act is also applicable over here, but the section numbers will be differing and some provisions will be differing because we are now contemporary to it. Okay, so relating to companies. So whenever you have a doubt, what is this company? The form of definition, the form of business. What is this company? We immediately go and check what? The definition and preamble. What the preamble says? Company or a definition, preamble and understand பண்ணிக்கணும். What the preamble says? An act to consolidate and amend the law relating to company. What earlier laws we had? 1956. When you go for company definition, as per the Companies Act, it says company incorporated as per this act and earlier acts. Earlier acts means 1956 Act. You go and refer preamble. Preamble says consolidate, which means you're consolidating, which means you're using that applicability also over 2013 Act. So when you come for negotiable instrument, it says it's defining. So when you say this instrument is a promissory note, you go and check the definition given in negotiable instrument act. If it's not following the definition, you're not going to call this as promissory. Probably you may call this as negotiable instrument. But promissory note means it has some five conditions, it has to follow the five conditions. Okay. So that's about preamble. Then we'll go for Act. Yes, we have seen this so many times. It's a bill, a draft of the legislative proposal, which will be passed by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, assented by the President, and it will be notified, that is made to the public through this official gazette of India. Okay, so example, I have referred the same table over there also. You can just refer. Okay, so I'm not going to repeat it. Okay, I have to go for definitions. Shall I take over? Next is definitions. Mention of definition is given in section 2, section 3, and some other initial sections also defining about this. It's defined in the act itself. What do you mean by definitions? Defined in the act itself. Why it is necessary? Because we are going to frequently use all that. So we need to understand. When we say director, who is a director? Each and every time we do not define. It's completely defined in the 100 Basis Act. Okay. The act follows if not defined in the respective acts. Please highlight. You're using Companies Act 2013. Okay. We say the act. Will not say the Companies Act 2013. Overall, perasa repeat பண்ண வேண்டாம். Is understood. The act means what? You're currently in Companies Act. The act is Companies Act. You're currently in LLP Act. The act is LLP Act. It's understood. Okay. So the act means it's understood that it is talking about that respective act. Okay. So from the respective acts itself, when we talk about company, it means a company incorporated under this act and under any previous law. When we talk about director, means a director appointed to the board of the company. So this is the definition following from that respective act itself. Okay. Whereas if you go for defining the term security, already we have discussed while discussing on corporate laws. Security means it's not defined under Companies Act. We have to refer SENA. You remember Securities Contract Regulation Act 1956, Section 2, Clause H defines what you mean by security. And it's applicable to the Companies Act 2013 also. Likewise, related to signing, you can sign using digital signature. What's a digital signature? Not defined in Companies Act, not defined in any IT Act or anywhere. Directly go and follow IT Act. This Information Technology Act. So, Information Technology Act 2000 under Section 2, so Clause 1 and Subclause P says you can, it's actually defining what do you mean by digital signature. Okay, it's applicable throughout everywhere. Okay. Likewise, you can go for SEBI Act and Depositories Act also. Okay, there is a small misalignment. Likewise, affidavit, it's defined under Companies Act for incorporation. So when you go for incorporating a company, you need to get the affidavit signed, right? So those cases you can directly take from there. Okay. We'll go for the definition, which is having the word means. So whenever you find the word, definition starting with the word, the company means, director means. Okay, in that case, what does it means? It's an exhaustive definition. What is exhaustive means? It will exactly define the term. Please highlight. I request you to highlight two terms. One is exhaustive definition, and it says it exactly defines the term. So when we talk about company, it means a company incorporated under this act. Which act? 2013 Act, or under any previous law, which means 1956 and earlier acts. Whereas if we talk about director, follows from section 2 clause 34, means a director appointed to board of the company. அவ்வளவுதான் டெஃபினேஷன். இதுக்கு பிறகு டைரக்டர் வயசா இருக்கக்கூடாது, சின்ன ஏஜ்ல இருக்கணும், டாக்டரா இருக்கணும், இன்ஜினியரா இருக்கணும், அதெல்லாம் அந்தந்த கம்பெனி ஒருத்தர். ஓகே. Next we'll go for includes definition, which is called as a listing definition. Listing, tabulating, includes is also same meaning, which means you can list it out. This one. Okay. It will actually not define the word, but are inclusive in nature. If it is listed, means it may not be interconnected. Some separate words may be there. It's a prima facie extensive. What do you mean by prima facie extensive? Means if I talk about vegetable, what are the things covered under vegetable in normal sense? That all will be covered. Okay. And not restrictive. It is having an extensive meaning, a wider meaning. So let me go for this example, debenture. Please have a keen look. Debenture includes. See, this word will be there. If you talk about director, director means that word will be there. Debenture includes. That word will be there. And the word is not on the definition. Means the means இருக்கணும். Includes the includes இருக்கணும். Debenture includes. See, includes means what? Please join with me. What does it mean? Listing. Listing means I can put 1, 2, 3 over there. See, debenture includes debenture stock, bonds, or any instrument of a company. See, it's a prima facie extensive definition, which means what it will give some small meaning associated with that. Evidencing a debt, whether it's constituting a charge on the assets or not, whether you create a charge on the assets or not. You call it as debenture. Okay. And when you go for the definition of body corporate or corporation, along with some few lines before, it says a company includes a company incorporated outside India also. So it does not define but states apart from other entities. So it's including this one also. So we have seen for means, we have seen for includes. Now both the words will be there. See, means and include or means or include. Go for the definition of share. Okay, as per Companies Act. Share means a share in the share capital of company. So you're finding this word means along with it and includes stock. See, and includes stock. It's a definition containing means and includes, which means to apply. The defining the term exactly is an exhaustive definition, whereas and includes means extending, listing out. Okay. So the words means and include. Then shall and may. When you say shall, it's a presumption, which means what? It's mandated. Imperative means it's exactly to be followed. May is not mandatory, it's optional or directive only, but law says it has to be taken mandatory. Okay. So may is like a normal word, may means like may or may not be, but law says may means please take it as mandatory. Okay. So a company may be formed for any lawful purpose. Beautiful one. Can please make a note of it. Update another. May not be formed for lawful purpose. May be formed for lawful. No, we can take it as may be formed for unlawful also. No. If we say that may be formed for any lawful purpose, we should be formed for lawful purpose. Okay, you cannot take it as may not be for lawful purpose. Okay. Likewise, if you go for section 21, it says documents, proceedings. See, I think I have discussed this earlier. Documents, proceedings require authentication or the contracts made by or behalf of the company may be signed by whom? Any KMP or an officer of the company duly authorized by the board in his behalf. You remember I was discussing two directors have to sign. Okay. Where? Doctrine of indoor management. Two directors have to sign. Okay. Who are the two directors? Any two directors? No. If there's a managing director, definitely be the managing director. If you go for finding the financial statements of the company, at the end of the year, the financial statements should be signed. The auditor will give the statement. Along with the auditor, two-person has to sign. Probably you might be knowing, you might have seen the balance sheets, right? Who will sign? The auditor giving the independent report will sign. I'm not talking about the independent auditor's report. I'm talking about financial statements, balance sheet, profit and loss account, cash flow statement. Who has to sign? Managing director, okay. Company secretary, if there is a company secretary should sign. It's not an alternate way and all. Okay, should sign, and along with that, sometimes KMP, CEO. CEO is secondary only. Managing director and company secretary are first person to sign over it. Okay. So here they say that may be signed by any key manager, person, or officer of the company. Means who has to sign here? Who has to sign here? Tell me. It says the related documents proceeding which is requiring authentication of contracts made on by on behalf of the company may be signed by any KMP or officer. Who has to sign here? KMP has to sign here. இல்ல ஆக்சுவலா சொல்லிருக்காங்களே ஆர்னு. Please try to understand. Even the or is mentioned, if your company is having a key managerial personnel, who is a KMP? CEO, CFO, okay, even a managing director also, CS or KMPs. If there is a person with designated role as such, then that person has to sign. If there is no CEO or CFO or other KMPs, then an officer of the company can sign. Which means who is the officer? See, without directors, the company cannot run. Which means the directors will be the first officers. See, this is how you have to understand. See, they may be saying may. See, our understanding is here. May. And they may be using the term as or also. It doesn't meant as this way. How you have to understand, a company may have a KMP, then KMP has to sign. So this may is not for the person who is signing. This company is for the company who is having the KMP on. If my company is having the KMP, then my company has to sign on behalf of the company will be signed for KMP only. Is it okay? So it's a beautiful content here. So this one case law, Tapti milk. Shall means they say it's an obligation and may means is conferring some power. Dictionary power is what is the power assigned to them. Likewise, this Sinam Motas, the word is shall is ordinarily mandatory, but it's sometimes so interpreted that it sometimes demands like. So you cannot take it as shall not. It's shall only. You should not take it as may not. It's may only. Okay. So can I just go through. So directly now we are going for the act. Section 1, preliminary, usually. So what do you mean by short title? It follows from section 1, subsection 1. How the act may be called as. There is no short form of calling that. Even though the heading is short title, there is no short form of calling that. You have to mention in long form only. It's General Clauses Act 1897. Preliminary is just an introductory part only. So it will give the short title, extent, commencement, and application and all. So if we say then and then we say the act is containing this act. Okay, that's all we understand. When you say go for the title, it will carve out its own identity. So probably I'm talking about LLP, Limited Liability Partnership Act. What is talking about? All the incorporation of how the LLP will be done and all the procedures. Likewise, Companies Act. Likewise, RTI, Right to Information Act. Okay. So which means it will give its identity. What the topic is going to talk. So this is about preliminary. Definitions, actually, we have to follow from chapter material, so I'm not touching this concept. Okay, let me finish off the remaining content, then we'll go for definition. So I'll make that as a second session. So before you come for the next class, I request you to go through this definition, then we'll go each and everything in detail. Okay. Next, we'll go for general rules of interpretation following from section 5 to 13. Okay. Section 5, probably whenever you read some lines, you'll be coming across this lines called as coming into operation of enactment. So, which means from which date it's applicable. Okay. See, it's been so whenever a bill is drafted, it comes as an act. Does it stop over there? Okay. If an act is there, how the public will come to know? How the public will be aware? It will be given in the official notification, gazette. Okay. So when it comes as a notification, only the public will be made aware of it. See, there is a line saying that ignorance of law is no excuse. எங்க நீங்க publish பண்ணா எங்களுக்கு எப்படி தெரியும்? That's not a question, right? So it should be notified. It should be properly given in the official gazette. Official gazette is a government press. Okay. So only if it comes in the official gazette, we'll come to understand that this is an act made to the public. If you go to Companies Act, we got the President assent on 29th August. In the official gazette, it is 30th August. So when it is enforceable, 30th August 2013. இந்த ஆக்ட் 2013 ஆக்ட் பண்ணும்போது ஏகப்பட்ட கன்ஃபியூஷன். இந்த ஒரு டேட்னால 1956 ஆக்ட் ஃபாலோ பண்ணுமா இந்த ஆக்ட் ஃபாலோ பண்ணுமா? Lot of confusion was there. Okay. Then they made a clarification. So enforcement of section 1 is from when? 30th August 2013. SEBI's ICDR regulations, Fifth Amendment regulation is mentioning of specific date. Notification was mentioning 14th August 2015, but in that section 1, they are mentioning as 1st of January 2016. So from this date only, it's made legal. Okay. So coming into operation of enactment means if there is no particular date mentioned, you can take the date as mentioned in the official gazette, the date of publication. See, Companies Act, even though President assent is over here, no specific date is mentioned. What's the date given in the official gazette? That is the date on publishing. This is 30th August, so consider as 30th August. Okay. Here, the notification was dated 14th August, but specific date was mentioned as when? 1st January 2016, almost 4 months difference time. You take this as the date. So from this date only, it's applicable. Okay. So applicability, if no specific date mention of particular date is mentioned, you have to take it. You have to get effective date means Assent of Governor General related acts. That is before the commencement of the act, we have this Governor General laws, right? And after that, President has made the act, right? So that we need to consider effective date. Case laws you can go through. I'm not going line by line. Fraction of a day. Sometimes it happens when we say first day of January. Which day? From which time we take it? Midnight of 31st December. So from the 12 o'clock, the 12 1 onwards we take it. Okay. See, Hindu law they say in a different way, Christian law they say in a different way, Muslim law they say in a different way. As per this law means what? As per the Indian laws, we have to consider from the midnight. Okay. Presumption against retrospectivity. This is often repeated question. But what do you mean by retrospective? We have something as prospective and retrospective. Retrospective is from the back. Okay. So generally, if nothing is mentioned, we have to take it as prospective, which means if I'm getting an act today, it's applicable from today only. At this time of no, from the morning, midnight. See, today is 13th August. Okay, Sunday, 13th August. From see, probably we are getting this as an official gazette at 11 a.m. From when this is applicable? From 13th August, from 12 a.m. only it's applicable. 12 noon, midnight. From that time only it's applicable. Okay. Uh, Retrospective. See, now read this line. Presumption against retrospectivity. You cannot directly take something as retrospective. You have to take it as prospective only. If anything mentioned is about there, yes, you can take it as retrospective. So retrospective means they have to expressly give in the words necessary or sometimes necessary impliedness will be there. Depends on the language coached. So how it is being phrased. Probably in foundation level I might have discussed. What do you mean by repealing? Repealing is taking away. So probably you might be knowing about this act, right? You know Indian Contract Act, huh? Indian Contract Act. You know Sale of Goods Act. You know Indian Partnership Act. Indian Partnership Act is not separately Indian Partnership Act. Indian Partnership Act was earlier Indian Contract Act. Then we have the separate provisions repeal, and here it's taken away from Indian Contract Act. We say it's repealed. From see, whenever we talk about any act, not only the title will tell the identity, also what's the history, what was the earlier act. So if you go for Indian Partnership Act, what was the earlier act to this act? Okay, 1932, we've got this act. Earlier to that, if you want to form a business, a partnership for business, you have to go and refer Indian Contract Act, which means this partnership act is not individually standing. We are following the provisions from we were following, and if we have any confusion, we have to follow Indian Partnership Act from Indian Contract Act only. So here we say as subsumed. Okay, repealed to where? Indian Partnership Act. Okay, subsumed from Indian Contract Act. We say it's subsumed. So when you go for repealing, whether it's any central legislation or any regulation, and if it's made after the commencement of the act, repeals any act made or yet to be made, unless otherwise any other purpose exists. Usually we get this problem. Unless means there may be any conditions related to unless. We have to fit to that. Okay. So repeal when it's repealed, it shall not revive. It's not enforced or repealed. How we consider that? No such provisions will exist. Okay. If you talk about Indian Partnership Act, no such provisions are existing in Indian Contract. We have to think in that way. If you go for referring Indian Contract Act is discussing only on contract only and special contracts, not on Sale of Goods Act, not on Indian Partnership Act. We should not consider that. We should consider as if you are dealing with Indian partnership, go and refer Indian Partnership Act. We should not consider Indian Contract Act. When you go for Partnership Act, you get any doubts, go and refer Indian Contract Act because from there only we took it. That's why I use the term substitute. Okay, I'm here at Indian Contract Act and I'm talking about partnership related business. This act is not applicable. That's what they say. Because it's repealed. See, not enforced. We think as if there is no provision at all in this act from the beginning itself. Not enforced or not prevailing. And not only that, the second point is very important. In case before 1932, I formed a partnership business, which act I might have followed then? Indian Contract Act. At that time, I was following Indian Contract. What are the provisions I was following from that act that is still applicable even the partnership is existing today? This is almost like 100 plus years, right? Not exactly 100 plus, but if I incorporated a partnership form, probably in 1910, like, okay. At that time, which act I followed? Indian Contract Act. I might have used in the sense that it's a partnership business, partners and other things and all. But I'm not using Indian Partnership Act at that time. So it's not affecting the previous operation, which means what? It is incorporated as partnership form, it's incorporated. You should not say it's wrong because it is not following Indian Contract Act. Okay. Then it will not affect the, see, I'm heading with shall not, shall not. So it will not affect any right or privilege or obligation or liability acquired, accrued or incurred. That's all there only. Okay. Because you say that it's not applicable, you cannot say it's applicable. And if any penalty is levied, any forfeiture is done, okay, any punishment is levied with respect to any offense, it will not get affected. Which means what? If any punishment is given, some imprisonment or something for 10 years, yes, it's applicable. You cannot say no. Okay. And yes, please highlight அதுக்காக ஏதாவது என்கொயரி எல்லாம் போயிட்டு இருக்கு அதுவும் நடக்காதா இல்ல நடக்கும். If any enquiry is going on, any litigation is going on, any case is filed on you at that time, that will not be applicable சொல்ல முடியாது சொல்ல. Okay, so shall not affect any enquiry, litigation, remedy, claim, privilege, debt, responsibility initiated or continued or insisted, which means that that will be continuing. அந்த லாக்கு மரியாதை கொடுக்கணும். That's a fact. Okay. See, instead of ICA, we have IP. Na? Obviously, we have to give more importance to partnership of form of business. That's why we have repeated and created a separate act, which means this act was not in force, not applicable. Inquiry that's totally wrong. Okay. So that's a beautiful content. So, in this case law, state of Uttar Pradesh, we are considering this as never existed. It's not prevailing. How we have to consider it? When you talk about partnership, you should consider as it never existed in Indian contract. It's never existed at all. Okay. Object is obliterate from statutory books, which means what? Vital. Please try to understand. It's not torn away from the book. If you go for the Bar Act, it's not torn away. How it is there? It's completely wiped up. It's clear. You don't know what was there. Okay. Then you may be asking, then if I get any doubts in Indian partnership, ma'am, then why have to refer Indian Contract Act? The gist is there, right? When we say a contract, there will be two parties, etc., etc. We'll say, okay. Likewise, for partnership also, we have to refer those contents. So, for example, whether a minor can enter into a contract. Whether a minor can enter into a contract? No. If you go and refer Partnership Act says minor can be admitted to the partnership, but for the benefits only. And all of the partners' consent should be over there. So, there may be some inconsistency, but you cannot say exactly I'm not following the definition. Okay, that's what they say. Like wiped out. Okay. Then you go for this case, Union of India, applicable to repeats, not to omissions. Omission is different and repeating is different. Omissions are அப்போதைக்கு தூக்கிருக்காங்க repeating அது இல்லவே இல்லைன்னா இருக்கும். So if you go for Bar Act and all, you get the star mark and the date will be mentioned. You go for companies back and small at the end of that, in the footer page, the dates will be mentioned from when this is applicable. So from and this is omitted and all the date will be applicable. So omitted means different and repeal means from the date of enactment itself is not over there. See, 1932 only we got Indian Partnership Act. Indian Contract Act we have from 1872. Okay, then we say this Indian partnership related provisions are repealed. We understand that from this year itself there is no provision in that. But when we got repealed, 1932 only. Repeal ஆனது 1932. Repeal சொன்னனால என்ன ஆகுது? இது கம்ப்ளீட்டாவே வந்து இந்த டேட்ல இருந்து இல்லைன்னு அர்த்தம். Not at all prevailing. See, never existed. But omission means from this date onwards omitted, which means before that we have that applicability, we have to follow that. Okay. This one you can go through. Let me finish off this content. We'll go for 6A. That is 6 and this is 6A. Section 6 and sometimes you might be getting this question. Discuss section 6, 6A of General Clauses Act. You will not get the heading. So section number tough and easy now. Section 6 and section 6A கேட்பாங்க. So what is section 6 with respect to repealing? What is section 16? The repeal of act, textual amendment in act and regulation, which means repeal and it's in amended. Probably they are repealing by expressly saying like omitted or something inserted or substituted in this. How far is going to affect it? Probably it's been how you have to treat this. It's been repeat or it's an operation in time. You have to treat in that way. Okay, it will be mentioned. Don't worry, it will be mentioned. Okay. And even section 7. So section 6, section 16, and section 7. All three will be put together as asked as one question. Revival of repeal enactments. Once it's repealed, now it's been put back. Repeal means never existed. Now they say that as per section 6, they are bringing it back. Repealed means never existed. Now they say they are bringing it back, which means it existed as it not repealed. இங்கதான் இருந்தது இப்ப இல்ல இப்ப திரும்ப வச்சுட்டேன் அப்ப முதல்ல இருந்து இங்கதான் இருக்கு which means நடுவில் கொஞ்சம் எதுவும் நடந்தது இல்ல அது நடக்கவே இல்லை ஓகே repeal means what never existed okay never existed which means what from the day it's enacted there is no such provision never existed at all now it has been what done revived which means what not at all repealed அப்படின்னா முதல் டேட்ல எப்படி இருந்ததோ அதே மாதிரி இப்பவும் இருக்கு ஓகே இல்லையா இல்லாம போச்சியா இல்ல இல்ல இப்ப இருக்கு அப்ப முதல்ல இருந்தே இருக்கு ஓகே this is how it is discussed so in the revival how it can be done means wholly or partially but we'll state the purpose and it's applicable central acts applicable after 3rd Jan 1968 and regulations on or after 14 Jan 1887 actually I'll discuss a small content over here probably we'll go for a timeline the act which we are following here is 1897 act and we went for this preamble, right? It says that we are consolidating, amending the earlier acts. The earlier act, one is 1887 Act. This is 14th Jan 1887. And another one earlier act was there, which was 3rd Jan 1968. Not 1968, sorry. This is 1868 should be. Okay. 1868. Okay. So when we talk about this revival, we have to consider all the central acts after this period. Okay, so this is applicability 1 after all this period. Okay, for which only central acts. Central acts means not rules and regulation we are talking. But when we go for the second content, for all the regulations on or after 14 Jan, we are not talking central acts. We are talking about the regulations of the central acts. So this is after which period? This is after this period. Okay, so actually when we talk about General Clauses Act, we have to have 3 timelines. One is 1987, applicable throughout now because we are in current act only. Actually, we'll discuss this in definitions also. Okay, so for this one and this one, we'll separately discuss. Okay, so that's about section 7. Can you please section 8? Construction of references to repealed enactments. So probably how far I can apply to it. That is construction means how far I can understand. It's all applicable for all acts, central acts, regulations before 15th August 1947 or any act of Parliament of UK under the British rule. Okay, for those generally applicable. And repeals and reenactments, probably without modification, you can do it. Reenact means reviving. Without modification, you can do it. And construed as reference to the provision, so reenacted. So, which provision I'm reenacting? That provision will be applicable as it is. Okay. So every act has its own distinction. Here was okay. 115 JB related to calculation of book profits. Oh, okay, this is a beautiful example. Whenever any change is made in IT Act, that change may not be implemented in Companies Act. When they say, see, when you are referring for the filing, tax filing, under the Companies Act, they say go and refer IT Act, Income Tax Act. If there are any changes made in the Income Tax Act, that is applicable as per the Companies Act also. Okay, so calculation of book profit, how you calculate? Go and refer IT Act. Okay, if there are any changes made over there, that change is applicable to Companies Act also. Okay, then hereafter is quite easy only. Section 9. Usually when they say when is commencing and termination of time. Okay, from and to. Let me go for this example. AGM conducted at 30/9/2016. Okay, that is before 6 months. It has to be done. And they have declared a dividend and it should be paid within 30 days. When the AGM was conducted, this date, when the dividend has to pay, as per the Companies Act, it says within 30 days from the date of AGM. Here, this date, this is from date, should be excluded. Okay, so from here you calculate the 30 days. So it comes 30/10, October 30. That date has to be included. So usually this will be done. So from to means leave of the from day, calculate from the very next day, then to day consider to be as include. Okay. So excluding the first day in a series, to including the last day in a series. So we say that probably in most of the cases, court will be giving to pay the penalty and all pay within 15 days. So 15 days. If the court is giving the judgment on the verdict today, 15 days means from tomorrow it had to consider 15 days. Okay. So you're calculating this 15 days. This 15th day happens to be a Sunday. What do you do? You have to take Monday or leave of Saturday also. You have to take Friday. Most of the cases say Friday. This is the General Process Act. General Process Act says the next day you have to take, or two means the last day. Some cases in some act they say you have to consider the earlier date. Loan வாங்கிட்டீங்க installment pay பண்ணோம். The next day or before day they'll say. That's it. Okay. Sometimes if you think logically that may be made applicable. Okay. So section 10, computation of time. So any act proceeding in any court or office is closed on that day or the last day as prescribed. Consider the next day afterwards on which the court or office is open. This is general process. Sometimes they can be selling the before day. Okay. And can go over the case law. Section 11, measurement of distances. Usually how you measure the distance, straight line or horizontal plane. Okay. Section 12, so in case if you are hiking and all, so how it is measured, we'll not see the slopes. We'll take it as this one straight line. So if there is a road going on here, we'll take this as a straight line, this as a straight line, this as a straight line. Then you consider the distance. Okay. Section 12, duty to be taken pro rata in enactments. Pro rata means proportionately. Okay. So under the customs or excise and GST and other things and all, same rate on any greater or lesser quantity. If I have to pay penalty 10% on 1000 kgs, okay, it's 10% on 1000 kgs. Or if I have to pay 10% for car, so the duty for car, if it is 10% on car worth 5 lakhs, it's 10% on 5 lakhs. If it is not the car worth 5 lakhs, if it is worth 10 lakhs, then 10% on 10 lakhs. Okay. I'll go for section 13, gender and number. Yes. Under subsection 1, most of the cases or in all the cases will be using masculine gender only, which means it includes female also. If anywhere you find men, it includes women also. If anywhere you find he, it includes male and female. Okay. If you find anywhere his father, especially when you talk about relatives, related to family and other things and all, his father and mother, which includes her father and mother also. Now come here. A daughter's liability to maintain her father unable to maintain himself. Daughter means what? Son also is included, huh? No, daughter means daughter only. Daughter is a specific word for the gender, right? Wife is a specific word to that gender. See, you have found this word spouse anywhere or wife anywhere? Might be using this word spouse only. Meant for male and female. Wife means this gender approach. Okay. So daughter's liability means daughter's liability only. Son's liability should not be taken. Her father means obviously daughter's father only had to take. Okay. Related to dealing with matters of succession, yeah, please highlight this one also. So, as per this Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act, they have clearly mentioned that it should not include female descendants. வாரிசு வந்து ஆண் வாரிசு பெண் வாரிசு ஆண் வாரிசு தான் வரணும் பெண் வாரிசு வரக்கூடாதுன்னு சொல்லிட்டாங்க. That was clearly mentioned not to include female. So it should not include it. இல்ல ஜெனரல் ப்ராசஸ் ஆக்ட்ல ஃபீமேலும் இன்க்ளூடட்னு சொல்லக்கூடாது பிகாஸ் இட்ஸ் அதான் சொல்றேன் இன்கன்சிஸ்டன்சி இருந்தா நம்ம ஃபாலோ பண்ணணும். ஓகே. And dealing with specific gender. Bullocks, no? Yes, not cows. Bullocks, bullocks. Singular and plural. Previous year means it includes previous years also. Okay, so 3 previous years. PY will be mentioned, which means PY. So this is one content. So from 5 to 13 we have discussed. Shall I go for the next heading directly? Section 14 to 19 is related to power and functionaries. Power conferred to be exercisable from time to time, which means time to time means what? He will not be applying his power daily and day to day. Whenever it's applicable, he'll be applying. When there is a case going on, he'll be applying his power. So on occasion appears and it's applicable for central acts and regulations on or after. Please highlight this date, 14th Jan 1887. Then if you go for States Reorganization Act, power can be exercised by the Chief Justice. If it is mentioned, it's applicable. Okay. So Section 15, power to appoint, to include power to appoint ex officio. Please highlight. See, there we saw an example. Power to appoint means the court has the power to appoint means appoint, suspend, and thing. Here, power to appoint means to include power to appoint ex officio. What do you mean by ex officio? You say this is to the office. To the office. Let me go for a small example. In each and every organization, very big organization, they'll be appointing a CEO. Okay. See, Mr. X is appointed as a CEO, which means there's a designation in the organization and we are appointed to the designation. I have Mr. Y. He is an expert in making this IT related digital things and all, data related and all. He's having a very big knowledge. But my organization does not have any particular role for him. My organization has a CEO, Chief Executive Officer. My organization has a CFO. My organization has a Chief Marketing Officer. My organization has a Chief Operational Officer. என்னென்ன தர முடியுமோ அதெல்லாம் கொடுத்தாச்சு. Now I don't know what to be. This person has to be designated with what role, because all these roles are made and some persons are occupying that role. So to give an office for this person, what I'm doing is I'm designing a role for him, saying that he's a chief digital officer. So far, that role is not there in my company. இவரை உள்ள கொண்டு வரணுங்கிறதுக்காக நான் என்ன பண்றேன்? I'm appointing him as chief. So he will be holding this office, but he will not be called as ex officer. Ex officer means these persons are the ex officers because the role is there. We are adopting to the role. What he did for Mr. Y, there is no such role to bring Mr. Y inside. He gave that role to me. The CDO, you are defining it. There is no such definition in your company. You are defining it because you want to bring Mr. Y inside. Okay, Mr. Y பெரிய ஆளு அவர் நம்ம கம்பெனி வந்தா சூப்பரா இருக்கும். அப்ப என்ன பண்றீங்க? இவருக்கு ஒரு ரோல் தரணும் அவ்வளவுதானே, சிடிஓன்னு போட்டு விடுது. அப்போ அந்த ஆபீஸ்க்கு இவர் இல்லை, இவருக்காக அந்த ஆபீஸ். Is it okay? But what happens here? CEO. I'm appointing Mr. X as CEO, which means what? That office is there and he is going there as a CEO. Which means what? CEO has the role. Mr. X is not having the role. Please try to understand. That office, that's what he calls ex officer. Ex officer is to the office. And most of that related to authority, related to court and all, related to competent authority and all, what they'll do is they'll mention there should be 5 officers. There should be 5 assistant commissioners. For example, in income tax related authorities, there should be a commissioner, there should be assistant commissioner, there should be a deputy commissioner. So these are the roles. Is it okay? So this is what you call as ex officio. So whenever you find a line, power to appoint, which means it includes power to appoint ex officio. Okay. So power to appoint any person to fill any office or execute any function. So include such appointment maybe either by name. See, that's what we are saying. Either by name. So we are giving the name or by virtue of office. CEO is by virtue of office. By name means to that person we are giving a name. CDO, example. Okay. So shall I continue? Section 16, as I discussed earlier, power to appoint include power to suspend or dismiss. Section 17, substitution of functionalities. Sufficient to mention the official title. Please highlight. Probably you might have gone through some case law. When we refer the case law, they say Assistant Commissioner of Income Tax versus that person's name. Who's this Assistant Commissioner? Mr. X may be at that time. His name will not be mentioned because Mr. X is not playing the role. Mr. X as Assistant Commissioner is playing the role. So, Assistant Commissioner of Income Tax has filed the case of Mr. X. So, sufficient to mention the official title of the officer who was presently executing the functions at that time. Okay, in case you are Mr. X, Mr. X means some layman. Now, I am not talking this person as Mr. X. Mr. X filing a case on Assistant Commissioner of Income Tax. Okay, which means he is not filing a case on the person, he is filing a case on the authority. In case Mr. Y is the assistant commissioner, Mr. Y did not give the loan back. He borrowed a loan, a housing loan. He did not repay the loan. The bank is now filing a case on whom? Mr. Y, to personal capacity. See, what they mentioned here is with respect to section 17, you did not mention the personal capacity, you mention as to what title he holds over. Okay, so at present executing that functions and it's applicable for central acts after this period and regulations on or after this period. And probably might be coming across this term in many cases. Successor. Successor is who's next, who's following next. Okay, to indicate the relation of a law, it may be of any functionaries or corporations having corporation succession. So applicability can just refer. Then official chiefs and subordinates, probably to that superior to the office, like applies to deputies and subordinates also. We say that assistant commissioner is applicable in most of the cases for the persons below that hierarchical office. Okay. Can you go for this case law, please? So, did you go for the second one? Preventive Detention Act. If there is a new advisory board constituted, and there was a case pending earlier, which means there was a board and that board was taking care of the case. Now there is a new advisory board constituted, means as per the act, it's the right given to the office, not to that board and number of persons over there. So they can take over the charge. Okay. So that's about till section 19. I have to continue from section 20 to 24 onwards. So this is related to provisions as to orders, rules, etc. made under the enactments. How you have to understand the orders, construction of orders, etc. issued under the enactments. They have the same meaning as an act or regulation. If I'm following a regulation, the regulation is not standing independently. It's referring to an act only. So what are the definitions and meaning given in the act? The same act meaning will be taken or carried over here also. Okay. So okay, directly I'll go for section 21. Power to issue means power to include, sorry, power to add, to amend, to vary, rescind, notify, order, rule, whatever. Everything will be covered. Okay. So subject to the like sanctions and conditions. So this is also normal only. Power of making rules. So making of rules or bylaws and issuing orders between passing and commencement of enactment. So they will be getting the rights to make rules, bylaws. They can issue orders with respect to application of any act or regulation. For example, you can take SEBI. SEBI is a quasi-judicial act. Probably I might have discussed this. So they have their own rights to make the regulations. So we have the SEBI ICDR regulations. They have their own rights. Okay. Probably with publishing of insider trading. They are making their own regulations. So they have so many regulations made by SEBI. So when the SEBI was enacted, SEBI was given the internal power that they can act as small parliament. Which means what? Parliament is not parliament. They can make their own laws. They can make their own regulations. Not own laws means not the complete act. They can make their own regulations. So, okay, so to establish any court or appointment of judge or officers, if you know something about tribunal, we have NCLT. Okay, it will be for tribunals and all, it will be mentioned in the act. If it is not mentioned in the act, you cannot make the tribunal. Okay, for competition tribunal, for consumer courts, we have. Okay, so it's like an enabling provision, which means to facilitate and preparatory to the enactment coming into force will be it. Okay. Then provisions, section 23, provisions applicable to making of rules or bylaws after previous publications. How far you can make it. So in case you feel like something is being drafted or something is being published, what you have to do is, so first you publish a draft. So you're going to make a rules or bylaw. You have to publish a draft. Why you need to publish? Because it might be affecting some persons who are having some common what benefits among them. So if you have to give the informations, and once you give the information, they get the authority deemed to be sufficient, which means what? They get the rights to correct it. Probably once you become CA, CMA, or CS, what happens is you will get some related draft published in your mail IDs. So that draft will be shared, and if you want to make some corrections, if you're having interest on that, you can make the corrections. So you get the authority to make the corrections. So authority deemed to be sufficient. If you receive that mail, you are getting that authority to make it correct. Okay. See, your correction is you are giving a suggestion and recommendation only. They may not follow it. Please try to understand. We can give you a recommendation because you are one person going to get affected from this, then you can give the recommendation. Okay, so that we can do it. And notice will be that date on which the draft will be taken into consideration. So that date will be mentioned. So if you want to go for any objection or suggestion of authority and giving sanction or approval, yes, you can do it. And conclusive proof. In case if there are any irregularities in the publication, it cannot be questioned. So you don't have the right. Okay. You have the right to make objections and suggestions only, not more than that. Okay. In section 24, continuation of orders issued under enactment. Yes, it continues in force. Whatever has been done, it just directly continues in force. Okay. So you get the statutory regulation, whether it's repealed or reenacted. Once order is given, see, remember that even though it's repealed, the inquiry will be just following. Okay. Likewise, even though it's repealed, the orders once given is given it. Okay. We go for business. So that's about this act. Then we'll go for section 25 to 30. It's just a basic related contents. Where we go for section 25 related to recovery of fines. So how the recovery of fines is done means usually they'll give the warrants. They'll be issuing the warrants and that warrant will be converted for recovering the fines. Okay, we'll be mentioning that person as recovery officer. You have used this term anywhere. Recovery officer. The recovery officer, you have to give the payment to him. Probably just think there is a property going in issue and there is a tenant over there. Okay. This tenant will not, during the litigation, this tenant will not make the payment to the property owner. Instead, this tenant will make the payment to the court because court has given the order. So each and every month, the rent will be paid to the court. And that court will be paying through the property owner through the recovery officer. Okay, so the issue and execution of warrants for the levy of fines, and probably we have to apply because related to penalty, right? So we have to apply Indian Penal Code and Criminal Procedure Code. Okay, so it's applicable for all act regulations and other things around it. Section 27, provision as to offence punishable under two or more enactments. Please make a note of it. Sometimes there are some or few more enactments made, whether it's been offensive either both or what. Prosecuted or punished either or any or both, okay, but shall not be punished twice for the same offense. ఒకటి తప్పు పట్టిగా దండన గుర్తున్నాగా అదే దండన అదే పదం తరపడం. In any other enactment you can give it. Okay, but under the same enactment, to the same person for the same offense you cannot give it. Okay. So reference we have to we call this as the double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is punishing for the same thing. It's not second time, third time, fourth time, you should not punish it. Jeopardy. Okay, this is following from Constitution of India. Under the Supreme Court case also, no bar for trial or convictions, but a bar to the punishment. In case, if you want to file a case, yes, you can go to the Supreme Court and get file. But punishment you cannot receive two times. I'm going to a high court. Okay. And I'm not getting myself favorable case. So I'm going to Supreme Court. So one case can be filed twice. But one case cannot be punished twice. Okay, so you cannot say in High Court they have given a punishment, the Supreme Court cannot. No, that's different way. The appeal case is different. Okay, so subject to prosecution is same. Okay, these two alternate charges. Yes, in this case, state of Madhya Pradesh, there was two alternative charges under the Prevention of Corruption Act. Acquittance in all the charges will not bar the conviction of the order. So we follow the Corruption Act. Under two sections, they were given the charges. One charges, if it is executed, means the other one not executed. No, it's not the bar of the conviction, which means you can charge on both the sections. You can levy penalty on both the sections. Okay. Then section 27, meaning of service by post. So that's why we need to have for a company, we need to have a register office. Why we need to have a register office of address? Because all the service will be related to that address only. So meaning of service by post means you need to have a proper address. It should be a prepaid one. So I'm sending a greeting card to you. Okay, birthday greeting card அனுப்புறோம். என்ன மாதிரி greeting card? இப்பதான் mail எல்லாம் வந்துச்சு தேவையில்ல. I'm sending a greeting card and or sending a big pack. அந்த பாக்ஸ் குள்ள ஓபன் பண்ணி பார்த்தா சின்னதா ஹார்ட் இருக்கு. ஓகே, அது லெட்டர்ல போட்டிருந்தா ஒரு கிராம் கூட தேராது. What I'm doing is I'm just giving a big pack, and not only that, I'm not paying the courier amount. I'm asking you to pay. Another திட்டுவீங்க. Okay. See, they are saying that it should be properly addressed, not only that should be prepaid. I'm making the service to you means I should not make you to pay the money. It should be prepaid. Okay. If it's not prepaid, there is a case law where you can collect it from the opposite party. Okay. And it can be done by registered person. This is normal. Okay. Effective time, delivery by ordinary course of time. See, you have this provision, right? The AGM notice when it has to be sent. 21 days or 24 days? Including the postal days is 24. 21, we say it as clear days. So why this 2 or 3 days differences? Because of this postal only. So that's about from the same case. Okay. So you can just make a note of it. This is not normal only. Citation of enactments. So whenever you go for citing it, which means the quoting the case laws, you'll give the title and short title, number, year, from which year it's applicable, and all section, subsection, and all you have to do. From beginning and end of the portion described, everything will be done here. Okay. And saving of previous enactments, rules, and bylaws it should not affect. Okay. What was there earlier? 1956 Act is there earlier. At that time it was there. It is not affecting 2013 Act. 2013 Act is applicable for 2013 only. After that is applicable. Before the 1956 Act was only applicable. So you cannot say that it will not affect it. Okay. Section 30, application of act to ordinance. Yes, we know already that ordinance means it's directly President's authority to give the law. So for central act, actually have to go for mentioning all the clauses number. Okay. So for central act, except section 5, it's applicable. Okay. For section 3, clause 9, these clauses is applicable. Whenever you term governor general related, dominion legislator, governor general related, then you have to follow section 23, section 72, and section 42. So when we say ordinance is the president power where the president can give the act under article 123 of the constitution. So he's given that exclusive power where he can make his own laws, but it's not permanent, it's only temporary in nature. So that's about this topic. Okay. So before we wind up, I'll just tell you what you have to refer for tomorrow's session. So all these things will be discussing from here. Okay. Section 3, the definition part. Actually, they'll be defining how you have to understand these definitions. Okay. So section 3 over here. So all the acts, sorry, all the definitions. Okay. So all the definitions. We have 28 definitions. Okay. After that, not only section 3, you have to refer section 4 also for understanding the definition of better. Okay, so I request you to just go through the wordings. Okay, anyway, I'll explain it to you. So this is section 4 along with the section 4. So whenever they say or they ask you to discuss about the section of what definition of General Process Act, you have to define section 3, section 4, and section 4. So you may expect this as a direct question. Discuss section 3, 4, and 4A. Likewise, section 6, 6A and all. Okay. So if you go till this page here, this is still will carry for one solid session, I think. Probably I'll not discuss all the 28 definitions. Probably maximum will go 10 to 15. Other things are some short definitions that we can manage. So that's all for